So my first red flags of emotional repression, part one, had to do with the obsession with equality. And if we're going to use the left and right language, it was for people on the left who, as many of us know, are obsessed with equality and inclusion. And so today's red flags of emotional repression, part 20, is for those on the right, many of whom are obsessed with or fixated on free speech. The argument for free speech is a good one, right? We should be able to express ourselves or say whatever we want without having anybody oppress or censor us. Now, can you hear the unmet needs in that petitioning? I need to be heard. I need to be left alone. I need to be allowed to be me. Doesn't it sound an awful lot like the calls on the left for inclusion, compassion, and equality? I need to be understood. I need to be accepted. I need to be allowed to be me. Could it be that it's the same thing but just dressed up in different clothes? It could be, because it is. These are cries from both sides for authentic expression. But here's the thing about authentic expression. If you're in any kind of emotional repression, you literally cannot do it. You can't do it. No matter how much you are heard, seen, allowed to be yourself, understood, you still will not be able to authentically express. Free speech, along with free will and choice, are kind of off the table when you have buried and repressed emotions in your body that are running the show. And I'm not talking about everyday sort of surface level emotions here. I'm talking about emotions that are buried in the unconscious, that are creating your suffering, not to mention your sense of self. When we bury what's true, we're forced to identify with our beliefs, right? And our beliefs create a false sense of self. Let me explain that a little bit more. Let's say as a kid, I was forced into repressing and burying vulnerable emotions like hurt and sadness, which means I had to show up in the world as sort of tough or no nonsense, yeah? I couldn't let people see that I had buried hurt and sadness in my body. What kind of things do you think I would be drawn to believe or take on as a philosophy or a worldview if this was the case? Maybe things like every man for himself, semper fi, show no weakness, don't tread on me. These beliefs and philosophies, they become like stand-ins for who I am, right? It's programming. It keeps me from knowing or, feeling or expressing what's true, which is that there's buried hurt and sadness in my body. And ultimately, that is what I'm not free to speak about, yeah? There's no free speech or free authentic expression when I have repressed, buried emotions in the body. Everything is protection when that's the case. Our suffering is happening not because we can't say what we think or believe, but because we can't say what we feel, or more accurately, what we felt in childhood, yeah? Our repression mechanism is censoring us all the time and forcing us to be someone who we're not. And that mechanism is unconscious, so we might not even realize that this is happening. But here are some of the signs. You need to be heard. You need to be left alone. You need to be allowed to be you. You need to be included. You need to be equal. You need to be loved. You need to be understood. See? Since in our emotional repression, we can't meet these needs in ourselves, we look outwards to others to do it for us and first. And so when they inevitably don't because they can't, we sometimes attempt to create laws that say that they have to. It's crazy. Bottom line, free speech and free expression is an inside job. And what it looks like in a practical sense is coming out of emotional repression. When you start to do this enough, you might be happily shocked to discover that the only really effective censorship is self-censorship. If you'd like to experience this for yourself, visit repressiontest.com.